Hello people of the internet, Jack here, and in my last video I shared my story about coming off of benzodiazepines, some of the struggles I went through, and some of the strategies I had to combat symptoms and to actually start feeling better. So I wanted to touch upon two of the things that I found most helpful in actually allowing me to turn the corner and really start to heal, and that is intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet. So in this video I want to go into the science of how these things work and how they can be beneficial to people going through benzo withdrawal syndrome. First, let's look at what the ketogenic diet is. The keto diet is a nutritional plan that involves consuming most of your calories from fat, 70 to 80%, a moderate amount of protein, 20 to 25%, and low carbs, 5 to 10%. Most people will think this must be unhealthy because we have been taught, thanks to lobbying from the cereal industry, that carbs should make up most of the calories we consume, with fat being the food we should least consume. However, research is coming out showing that obesity is a result of too many carbs and sugar, not because of fat. Again, lobbying, this time from the sugar industry in the 1950s, is partly to blame. Much like how the pharmaceutical industry manipulated drug trials, as we know from the lies that we've been told from benzo withdrawal and the lack of long-term studies, the sugar industry also manipulated the data. They cherry-picked and forged studies to shift blame for poor health and obesity from sugar to fat. For me and many others, this is the ideal food pyramid. Fat is very important for the body. Besides being a superior energy source over carbohydrates, it's essential for hormone production. And in fact, our brain is made up of at least 60% fat, and every cell in our body has a membrane that is made up of fat. So we can see, fat is a friend and not a foe. The keto diet is becoming a fad due to its incredible ability to facilitate weight loss, but as we can see, it does much more than that. It has many health benefits, and has even been successful in treating and reversing diseases that pharmaceutical drugs can't. It has been shown to reverse diabetes, reduce hunger, increase mental and physical performance. It can provide better skin complexion. It decreases inflammation, increases energy, balances blood sugar levels, has anti-aging effects. It's good for your eyes. It protects and rejuvenates the nervous system, improves mood, decreases anxiety and depression. It can even cure epilepsy, as it did for me, back when I was in 6th grade. It's been shown to dramatically reverse Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. It's been used to treat traumatic brain injuries. It can help with headaches, give you better sleep, and assist gastrointestinal and gallbladder health. And one of the things we'll look at in this video is its powerful antioxidant effects. It's even been shown to help reverse cancer. The goal of the keto diet is to put your body into a state of ketosis. But what is ketosis? Your body has two different ways that it can derive energy. Carbohydrates is how most of America functions. But if you deprive your body of carbohydrates, it turns to fat burning mode. This fat burning mode happens when fat enters the liver. It is then converted into the three ketones that we'll be discussing. These ketones can also be produced by fasting and after intense exercise. The three ketones that we'll be looking at are acetoacetate, beta-hydroxybutyrate, and acetone. The first ketone, acetoacetate, is produced and then is converted into acetone and beta-hydroxybutyrate. If we look at the chemical structure of acetone and beta-hydroxybutyrate and compare them to known GABA agonists of ethanol and GHB, we can see that they're actually very similar. Acetone only has one more carbon than alcohol and a slightly different arrangement, and BHB and GHB are actually isomers of each other, having the same number of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, just arranged slightly differently. This close similarity between ketones and GABA agonists caused me to search further into why ketosis and ketones can have similar effects to GABA agonists. I should point out that ketones are not GABA agonists, but they act in a similar way in that they encourage the body naturally to produce more GABA. And I think the reason why is when we look at the structure of these ketones, here we have BHB and acetoacetate, and compare them to GABA and glutamate, we can see that they are very similar. When somebody takes a benzo for a long period of time, the GABA receptors downregulate, and that means there's less GABA in your system and more glutamate in your system. So when we're going into withdrawal, first the drug is coming out of our system, and after the drug comes out of our system, then the real healing can begin. And this happens slowly as the body tries to balance out the number of GABA receptors and glutamate receptors. There are far less GABA receptors than there should be because of the benzos we've been taking. So a lot of the withdrawal we're experiencing is the body having too much of the excitatory glutamate and, as we'll see, aspartate, and not enough GABA in our system. This could cause one to think, okay, we just need less glutamate in our system and we'll be okay. The problem is that most GABA is actually formed in the body from a type of glutamate called glutamine. To understand what's actually happening, let's look at the glutamate-glutamine cycle. First, we have glutamate in the synapse. It enters the astrocyte and is converted to glutamine. Glutamine is then excreted into the synapse and is picked up by the neuron, where it is converted into glutamate. Now here it has two options. It can be manufactured into GABA, or it can be used to create aspartate. Or, if neither of these are needed, it can be re-excreted into the synapse. Now, this changes somewhat when there's ketone bodies present. We start at the same place where glutamate is taken up into the astrocyte, but instead of being converted directly into glutamine, these ketone bodies, since they're so structurally similar, can actually enter and are also converted into glutamine. So now we have an excess of glutamine. This excess of glutamine enters the synapse, is taken up by the neuron, and it is preferentially turned from glutamate into GABA versus aspartate, or released into the synapse again. This also causes more glutamate that's in the synapse to be sucked up by the astrocyte. This process is summarized nicely by Psychology Today. Glutamate has several fates. It can become GABA, inhibitory, or aspartate, excitatory, and in excess, neurotoxic. Ketogenic diets seem to favor glutamate becoming GABA rather than aspartate. No one knows exactly why, but part of the reason has to do with how ketones are metabolized, and how ketosis favors using acetate for fuel. Acetate becomes glutamine, an essential precursor for GABA. When we change the main fuel of the brain from glucose to ketones, we change amino acid handling, and this means we change the ratio of glutamate and GABA. The best responders to a ketogenic diet for epilepsy end up with the highest amount of GABA in the central nervous system. One of the things the brain has to keep a tight rein on is the amount of glutamate hanging out in the synapse. Lots of glutamate in the synapse means brain injury or seizures or low-level damaging excitotoxicity, as you might see in depression. The brain is humming along, using energy like a madman. Even a little bit more efficient use of this energy makes it easier for the brain to pull the glutamate back into the cell. This is part of the reason why the ketogenic diet is so successful in treating seizures, even better than medicine in some cases, like mine. The ketogenic diet provides the extra GABA the body needs naturally and doesn't have the downside of GABA deregulation that medication has. So we can see how the keto diet can help turn excess glutamate to glutamine, which is the precursor to GABA, all while decreasing the amount of aspartate synthesized and glutamate available for reuptake, leading to an increase in GABA and a decrease of the excitatory neurotransmitters glutamate and aspartate. But this isn't the only way the keto diet can help people with benzodiazepine withdrawal syndrome recover. The next thing we will look at is how inflammation can worsen or even cause the symptoms we experience, and how ketosis helps correct the problem of inflammation. So what is inflammation? Inflammation is a complex series of chemical and cellular activities performed by the body in response to injury or abnormal stimulation caused by a physical, chemical, or biological agent. And it can be detrimental to various parts of your body. And if you look at some of these, you may recognize them as similar to things that we go through in benzo withdrawal. Inflammation can come from certain stressors. These stressors cause your immune system to release oxidative agents that are meant to attack whatever is causing the stress, but inadvertently they also attack other parts of your body that are not involved in the stress. This can cause more stress, which in turn can cause more inflammation and more damage, more stress, and a vicious cycle can start. One way we can fight inflammation is through the use of antioxidants. These antioxidants can break this cycle by reducing the amount of damage that are caused by the reactive oxygen species that are released when inflammation occurs. There are various foods you can eat that have antioxidant qualities, and there are supplements you can take, but there's a powerful way that your body can actually fight this process and release certain inflammasomes, which will directly inhibit the effects of these reactive oxygen species. Researchers found that the anti-inflammatory effects of caloric restriction or ketogenic diets may be linked to BHB-mediated inhibition of the NLRP3 inflammasome. In other words, the key player in many inflammatory diseases is suppressed by BHB, which is one of the main ketones produced from the ketogenic diet. We can see in this table that the ketogenic diet has proven itself in the treatment of various illnesses in clinical and laboratory studies. Many of these issues are not able to be helped readily with medication. And if we look at the potential mechanism of action under the neurological column, we see that enhanced mitochondrial function is one of the main proposed mechanisms of action. Let's take a look at how the ketogenic diet can help the mitochondrial function be enhanced. A ketogenic diet also increases the number of mitochondria, so-called energy factories in brain cells. A recent study found enhanced expression of genes encoding for mitochondrial enzymes and energy metabolism in the hippocampus, a part of the brain important for learning and memory. Hippocampal cells often degenerate in age-related brain diseases, leading to cognitive dysfunction and memory loss. With increased energy reserve, neurons may be able to ward off disease stressors that would usually exhaust and kill the cell. A ketogenic diet may also directly inhibit a major source of neuronal stress by, acting like a blueberry. Reactive oxygen species are unfortunate byproducts of cellular metabolism. Unlike the gas oxygen, these oxidants have a single electron that makes them highly reactive, bombarding into proteins and membranes and wrecking their structure. Increased oxidants are a hallmark of aging, stroke, and neurodegeneration. Ketones directly inhibit the production of these violent molecules and enhance their breakdown through increasing the activity of glutathione peroxidase, a part of our innate antioxidant system. The low intake of carbohydrates also directly reduces glucose oxidation, something called glycolysis. Using a glucose-like non-metabolized analog, one study found that neurons activate stress proteins to lower oxidant levels and stabilize mitochondria. Due to its high-fat nature, keto increases polyunsaturated fatty acids such as DHEA and EPA, both sold over the counter as brain-healthy supplements, which in turn reduces oxidant production and inflammation. So we've seen how ketones can be helpful in decreasing glutamate and aspartate while increasing GABA, and how they can decrease the inflammatory response. We know that we can use the ketogenic diet to produce ketones. Now let's look at some other ways the ketones can be increased in the body. Fasting is the main way they can be increased, and intermittent fasting is a form of fasting where you actually can still eat every day, and we'll look at that further in a minute. Prolonged fasting is where you don't eat for days on end. Working out can also increase ketones by consuming MCT oil, which is a medium chain triglyceride, the building block for ketones to be produced. And lastly, exogenous ketones can also raise ketone levels. Intermittent fasting is where you restrict your food intake to not eating for 16 hours and then consuming all your food in an 8-hour window. For women, the same benefits can be had if you restrict your food in a 14-hour window and consume your food in a 10-hour window. Research shows that inflammation may be involved in the development of chronic conditions such as heart disease, cancer, and rheumatoid arthritis. Some studies found that fasting can help decrease levels of inflammation and help promote better health. One study in 50 healthy adults showed that intermittent fasting for 1 month significantly decreased levels of inflammatory markers. Another small study discovered the same effect when people fasted for 12 hours a day for 1 month. What's more, one animal study found that following a very low-calorie diet to mimic the effects of fasting reduced levels of inflammation and was beneficial in the treatment of multiple sclerosis, a chronic inflammatory condition. One study in mice showed that practicing intermittent fasting for 11 months improved both brain function and brain structure. Other animal studies have reported that fasting could protect brain health and increase the generation of nerve cells to help enhance cognitive function. Because fasting may also help relieve inflammation, it could also aid in preventing neurodegenerative disorders. In particular, studies in animals suggest that fasting may protect against and improve outcomes for conditions such as Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's. Fasting is a great way to detoxify yourself. It gives the digestive system a break and removes excess toxic buildup in your organs. When you fast, your body activates a process of getting rid of toxins and old cells, which is why fasting has been shown to have anti-cancer and anti-aging properties. The 2016 Nobel Prize was awarded to Yasunori Oshumi in physiology and medicine for his incredible findings in the supernatural healing potential of this process called autophagy. Fasting and high-fat diets have been used for thousands of years to help with serious medical problems such as seizures. It is also associated with spiritual healing and fortification. I am reminded of the story in the Bible where the disciples failed to cast out an unclean spirit that caused a boy to be afflicted spiritually and physically, including seizures. And when they asked Jesus why they couldn't cast it out, he told them that sometimes the only remedy is fasting and praying. Jesus fasted himself before being tempted by Satan in the wilderness. There are also many examples of prophets fasting to be strengthened spiritually or before they received a revelation or vision. There seems to be a spiritual component to fasting and its healing potential. We know that fasting is a way to increase ketones, and that the keto diet has been described by some as, quote, the starvation diet. Not because you don't eat enough, but because it transitions the body into, quote, starvation mode, transitioning the body to use its built-in long-term fuel source, fat, which we know is the building block material for the production of ketones. I can't help but wonder if this ketone boost not only has physical, but spiritual healing potential. I don't know if I would suggest doing prolonged fasting while in acute withdrawal, but intermittent fasting gives all the benefits of fasting while still giving your body sufficient nutrients. In fact, when I started doing intermittent fasting, I was able to keep down some food, and the infections my body was fighting started to go away. And this is really the point when I feel like my health started to turn around. Recovery is a process, but there are things we can do that help that process along by providing our brain with more energy and healthy fats it needs to heal. We can eat antioxidant foods and use the properties of ketosis to reduce inflammation, and we can use intermittent fasting to also reduce inflammation, to cleanse out toxins, to give our digestive system some much-needed reprieve, and to enhance the benefits of ketosis by further raising ketone levels. We can also give the body plenty of healthy fats to produce the hormones we need while naturally reducing the amount of excitatory neurotransmitters it produces, glutamate and aspartate. All this while providing the body more of the building blocks it needs to naturally produce more GABA. And there it is. These are the reasons I think that intermittent fasting and the ketogenic diet can really help people in benzo recovery. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope some of you can use this information to get well. Thanks for watching.